Hey everybody, I'm Magnus and welcome back to my channel. Alrighty, well let's go ahead and get started with today's video. So I do believe that today's lesson will be lesson number 8, and today's topic is going to be what is an altar and do you need one? So well, let's go ahead and get started. An altar is a structure in which offerings, sacrifices, and or rituals can be made for spiritual or religious purposes. Now, that's not necessarily the only things typically that altars can be used for, but traditionally speaking, they are. So, what are the different types of altars? Why does it kind of give a varied definition? Even though, again, as I've said in many of my videos, that my definitions are sort of my own, and they're the way that I describe something, an item, situation, whatever the case may be. It's just the way I've come to know it. It's the easiest way for me to explain it. So anyway, why does it give such a kind of varied definition between offerings and rituals, sacrifices, all this? No, we're not talking about, getting an animal or a person and sacrificing them. Typically, a little off subject, typically sacrifices in religions like this or practices like this, or whatever that path is to you, whether it's a religion, a spiritual path, or something in between. Typically, sacrifices are like something like giving up something. You know how like you may have Lent and they give up like meat or something for so many days. It may be something like that. It could be something very, very simple. It doesn't have to be, going out and sacrificing something. By no means. It's not like that. If blood is involved for some reason, usually it's like a drop or two or three. Literally drops. Sacrifices isn't quite what everybody puts it out to be like. Not in modern day terms, anyway. Now, way back in the day, yeah, it might be a different story. But anyway. Offerings, it depends on what your type of altar is used for. You may do offerings there. If you worship a deity or work with a deity of any kind, you may do an offering or a sacrifice to that deity. Offerings are very common, in working with deities or any kind of other beings. And you can also do rituals based around the altar and stuff like that. Now, the concept of an altar is like sacred space, even though typically, I guess, your altar would be in your sacred space, but I guess it could be a sacred item. I don't know how that would, or how you would want to call that. But anyway, so this is the area where you would do all your workings of whatever, anything from meditating, prayers, giving offerings, doing magical workings, just giving thanks, Also, altars can be used for other things than just, like magic and gods and stuff like that, and deities. It can be used for ancestors, honoring your ancestors. There's all sorts of different types of altars out there. I guess maybe that's where I should have started off. You have anything from a deity altar to an ancestral altar. You have what I call like a spiritual altar. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with any beings anywhere. It's just certain items that connect to that person for whatever reason. You know, it may be the correspondences that go along with those items as to why they have it on there, but usually it has no relation, no connotations to any kind of deity or spirit or being or anything like that. You know, altars can, like, there's tons of different types of altars out there. People do ceremonial altars. You have altars that are designated for holidays, for seasons. There's so many different types, and an altar, even though this, you know, the definition that I gave says a structure, an altar could be something like a shelf. It can be a bookshelf, you know, like a shelf bookshelf. It can be a shelf on the wall that just kind of sticks out. It can be a table, it can be a coffee table, it can be a nice elaborate altar, it can be a piece of wood, it can be a stone, it can be a log. Technically, you can use the space that you're in. When I talk about sacred space, you could have your sacred space around you, and then you could take an area in that sacred space and not even have like a physical item, just the ground or the floor or whatnot, and use that as your altar. You know, so altars are really universal in how they work and what they're used for and the way to design them. I mean, you can even have portable altars. You can do an altar on a piece of paper. You know, just do the concept of like where the items will be at, and that's your altar. You draw your symbols and sigils or whatever you may want on it, and then whenever you go to do your workings, you pull out that piece of paper and you put your items on top of it, and that's your little portable altar. You can have something, a portable altar, like a little box or a case or something that you carry stuff in, and that in itself could be your altar. You know, your items are already in there, already packed in together. You know, it's a little case that you carry. You know, I mean, altars are really unique in how they can be designed, especially as different practitioners progress and we grow, and you know, the practices are becoming so much more common now, more open. There's not as much ridicule as there used to be. At least this day and age, typically we're not burned to death or crushed or hung or drowned or any of that stuff. But so altars are really great for numerous amount of things. You can use them for a number of things. Just know that in creating the altar, just like anything else that I've ever said, it's all about your intention, and when you create it, just know that whenever you design it, it's based on really your feel for it. You know, if you don't worship any deity, if you don't work with any deity, then don't put statues of deity on there. Don't have anything that relates to deity. You know, if you do work with masculine and feminine energies, but you don't necessarily call it a name or don't have anything, you could, per se, have little effigies or little candles or something that represents a feminine and masculine without representing direct deities or anything like that. You could even put little things on there to help you meditate, you know, like incense, and they have those little mini Zen gardens, like little stones and benches and sand that you can, you know, design and go over. And I don't know, there's just so many different things that you can do with an altar. It just depends on your path and whatever you want to do with it. And the second question was, do you need an altar? No, not at all. You know, like I said, you can use the floor, the ground. You don't have to use anything. Like if you work on most manifestation, like just with your own energy or the energy from the earth or energy around you and stuff like that, and you don't use actual physical items, then why would you need an altar if you don't work with anything, if you don't really have any tools or anything like that? So that's something for you to think about whenever you decide that, you know, you want an altar or don't want an altar. Now, know that you can have more than one altar. If you work with deity, you know, you can have an altar for a deity. If you work with multiple deities, you can have two different altars, one for each deity. You know, maybe those deities don't like working together, so you don't want them on the same altar, so you have them on separate altars. You know, you can have an altar for one deity, and you can have another altar for the holiday, for the season, or, you know, something like that. It's really up to you, you know. A lot of people that I know who kind of work in the craft and things like that, they have small altars set up for their ancestors, like an ancestral altar. And that's where they just go and they kind of give offerings to the past, the ones who have passed, and they ask for guidance and things like that, during spiritual workings. And but it's really up to you on what altar you have, if you have an altar, how many altars you have. I mean, it's really up to you. This is something, again, that you can personalize. It's not a requirement. Now, if you look up different things about altars, you will learn different things. Some people will tell you that your altar has to be activated. I don't personally think of it that way, but just to let you know what they refer to. So you may take, like, say you have your altar set up, right? You may take like a slight cloth, like a very light colored cloth, or maybe black cloth, whatever, but lightweight, and lay over top of it. And then whenever you want it activated, you may take that cloth off, and that activates your altar for you. Now, I personally believe that, working with it, you're putting your energy into it all the time. It's constantly activated unless you, like, cleanse it of every energy and all that stuff. Otherwise, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's there like a battery, or they're doing a working, or they're, doing whatever its purpose is. So, anyway, just keep that in mind. I hope that this video was able to touch up on a few things for you. Just know that, even though I say that, altars are not a requirement, it also depends on your path. If you do go on like a religious type path in witchcraft, then you may be required to have an altar, and there may be certain things you're required to have for that path. But again, basically it's still up to you, meaning whether it's a path you choose to take that requires one, or whether you just want one or not. It's really up to you. But anyway, so I hope I was able to answer some questions about what an altar is and what they may be used for, and if you need one or not. Feel free to ask me any questions. God, I feel like a broken record or something, repeat myself all the time with that, but I do really enjoy answering questions. So if you have any, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Also, give me a little like and subscribe. That way you can kind of keep up to date on my newest videos. And hopefully you'll continue to keep along this path with me, and give me some ideas and stuff like that to kind of help keep me focused, and give me some ideas for videos and whatnot. I definitely would like to hear back from y'all. So anyway, hope everyone's doing well. Take care of yourself. Like I always say, be kind and don't take no shit. Later.